23. Baubles of the Mind, Sutras and the Void. The philosophers of the early centuries of this era who put their sutras into the mouth of the Buddha seem to us to have rendered them as incomprehensible as words could make them. If they did it in order to confuse the likes of us, they succeeded magisterially. In the Diamond Sutra, they speak of samsara and nirvana as being identical. In the Heart Sutra, they go further. They speak of form and the other disparate skandhas, then the chain of causation, and finally the four holy truths, in fact all dharmas, and declare them to be identical with emptiness, and emptiness to be identical with them, and in every possible way and from every possible point of view. In short, they point out that all dharmas are void. But these dharmas are all concepts, baubles of the mind, and they treat them solemnly as though they existed in their own right and were things solidly and indubitably existing. Then they proceed to state the contrary, and finally, with a double somersault, the contrary of the contrary. At first sight, this looks like a precursor of the koan technique that developed some 5 centuries later in Japan. Yet, without all these gymnastics, the doctrine appears to be quite clear and simple and obvious. And I think it must appear so in the light of the later Tang masters, whose teaching was largely based upon these sutras and the Lanka. All these dharmas are just concepts, perfectly inexistent, and are interpretations by divided mind of that which whole mind knows as what we call a void. The one perceives the world of multiplicity and phenomena in space and time. The other knows emptiness, though it is divided mind that so calls it, and noumenon. Evidently they are the same, but their identity lies in the mind, not in the contrary interpretations that are perceived, for the apparent difference depends on which eye is looking at them. What advantage can there be, one may ask, in trying to see contraries as identical, with the eye that can only see contraries? One can only suppose that it was a technique devised in order to prise open the other eye, so that both contraries could be seen and recognized as one whole, and the contraries of contraries and their contraries, and so on ad infinitum. I wonder if all this is necessary for us, and whether it could be possibly efficacious, for contraries cannot be seen as identical by the reasoning mind, whose modus operandi is a function of its inherent duality, so that it is not possible, whatever anyone may think or pretend, to see samsara and nirvana as identical. For no two separate thoughts can ever occur simultaneously. Such identity as can be apprehended by reasoning is not such, but only a reasoned assimilation of two different things that are seen to resemble one another. Identity is quite other. It is an act of direct vision on the part of whole mind. 24. Ultimate and unconditioned reality is negative and void. Let us be clear about this and express it in our Occidental manner of speech, and try to see what exactly is this idea of a void, for it is an idea like any other. The phenomenal, objective, relative world of sense impressions is an interpretation by divided and reasoning mind, which operates by a comparison of opposites, of noumenon, the absolute, subject, none of which, if you regard them as different in any way or as aspects of one whole, it is able directly to perceive. And the contrary, with which everything here in question is to be identified, is called emptiness. As the void, it is the counterpart of plenum, and all these qualities, these dharmas, treated as though they were things, are therefore elements in that plenitude. A void, however, is a total negative. If you think of reality or being as you are taught to do, you are assuming something positive, and each of these positives is inevitably accompanied by its negative, which we have to term non-reality and non-being. It is this negative that is the void or emptiness, and the negative implies its constituent plenum, so that this void, being that which is not, is also that which appears to be, i.e., non-manifestation manifested, which is the phenomenal and apparent universe, or samsara. This surely is the real message of the sutras, that our intuition must apprehend the negative reality of the void in order to comprehend that its positive element is appearance, and that thus, and not the other way around, must they be seen if their identity is to be assimilated and not merely assumed. Note, read dharmas. Their true nature is a no nature, and their no nature is their true nature. For all dharmas have one mark only, i.e., no mark. For there are not two natures of dharma, but just one single is the nature of all dharmas. And the true nature of all dharmas is a no nature, and their no nature is their true nature. It is thus that all points of possible attachment are abandoned. That is from Prajna Paramita Sutra, cited by Dr. Edward Conze in his Diamond Sutra, page 36. This Dharma i.e., the ultimate reality in both its objective and subjective form. Page 37. The real nature of all manifestation is no nature, and of all ideas of reality and of being. For all such are concepts or dharmas. They are directly negative or void, and only indirectly positive and relative. (25) Nothing in something. To look upon the void as an emptiness that exists somewhere in a cosmic fullness will never open the mind to its wholeness. Vision must start afresh by realizing that a cosmic plenitude is an imaginary implication. Plenitude. Vision must start afresh by realizing that a cosmic plenitude is an imaginary implication. And that the cosmos itself is not. The void is not nothing somewhere within something. That something is nothing. There is nowhere within it, and the void is that. Something in nothing. It is the basic notion, the fundamental conception that is erroneous. People start by assuming reality, a something, a positively existing continuum, and then seek to situate the void somewhere therein. But it is the void we have to take as the basic notion, the fundamental conception, the continuum that is a non-continuum. And then see that if there is anything apparent anywhere, it can only be in that. That which is not one. We must go further. Just as we have realized that I am not in reality, and that there is no being therein, so we have to understand that there is no reality either. Reality is just a manifestation of no reality. For only nothing can be said to exist. In fact, of course, nothing exists, which means that it does not exist as nothing. That again is the void, directly approached or seen as it is not. I am not. That which I think is I am is really nothing of the kind. That is that which eyes, experience, consciousness, being. I am not any of those things, or all of them, for no such thing as I exists. I is only a technique whereby experience is registered in a manner that is interpreted as personal. That which I think is I am is experience, consciousness, being. But they are not either, except insofar as they are not. They are not, therefore they are, for so it is. "26. The ultimate understanding." The essential understanding is that, in reality, nothing is. This is so obvious that it is not perceived. We quote Hui Neng's "From the beginning, not a thing is," without apprehending its full significance. We refer to the void and emptiness without realizing what is implied. What is meant is just what is said, i.e., that nothing is, that nothing alone is what is, that nothing alone is what is, not that no thing is real in something, not that in positive being, which we tacitly assume, no object is real. Positive being is not to be assumed, but negative being, non-being. It is non-being only that is, and there is nothing but that. It is only in function of non-being that being seems to be. Non-being is, and it is because non-being is, and only non-being, that any being can be. Non-being is, and it is because non-being is, and only non-being, that any being can be. For being is a manifestation of non-being. The realization of the void. Being must be replaced by non-being in order that anything may be. For being is a projection of non-being. This is the necessary realization, and perhaps the ultimate, that nothing alone is, and that there is only is not. That is only by virtue of is not. For nothing but nothing is of itself, and only the isness of is not can be. That is the realization of the void. Note, this is the deep meaning of the Buddha's words in the Diamond Sutra about bodhisattvas knowing no being, and of Hui Neng's declaration that we must rid ourselves of the idea of being as well as of self. Its meaning has been masked by the article "a," usually given it elsewhere, which appears to assimilate it to a term for self, ego, individual, whereas it is to be applied to the plane of reality. The void, non-being alone, is complete. (27) Because it is not. Authority is comforting. Let us seek it. In chapter 13 of the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha takes a series of 5 examples: transcendental wisdom, his own teaching, particles of dust, the word system, and the 32 marks of a Superman. Of each of these, it is said that they are not, and that therefore they are. For instance, because what was taught as particles of dust by the Tathagata as no particles that was taught by the Tathagata. For instance, because what was taught as particles of dust by the Tathagata as no particles that was taught by the Tathagata. Therefore, they are called particles of dust. And this word system, the Tathagata has taught as no world system. This world system, the Tathagata has taught as no world system. Therefore, it is called a world system, and so on for each. This is followed by one of the elaborate hyperbolic metaphors used to emphasize the supreme importance of this teaching. And indeed, the Venerable Subhuti is moved to tears thereby, and according to Mr. A. F. Price's translation from the Chinese, had an interior realization of its meaning. One might read this many times without understanding the tremendous importance attached to it. For neither translator draws attention to it or offers an explanation. Nevertheless, its supreme importance is evident enough when one understands that each of these contradictions is just an example of the formula. It is, because it is not, therefore it is. Or, as I give it, I, apparently, am. Because I am not, therefore I am. Or, because reality is non-reality, therefore it is reality. Since being is non-being, therefore it is being. The importance of this understanding of the precedence of the negative element to the positive, of the void to the plenum, of non-being to being, of I am not to I am, is sufficiently great to justify any degree of hyperbole, for it requires a reversal of our habitual way of regarding these matters, and a transvaluation of our established values, according to which, as I have pointed out, we assume positive reality or being and then look for their negatives. That is, we imagine the void as an emptiness in a pre-existing fullness, and nothing in an assumed something, whereas we are urgently required to apprehend the ubiquitous pre-existence of nothing out of which something may appear, or out of non-manifestation, manifestation. In the following chapter, 14, Subhuti, full of enthusiasm, says, "Through it cognition has been produced in me. Not have I ever before heard such a discourse on Dharma. Most wonderfully blessed will be those who, when this sutra is being taught, will produce a true perception. And that which is true perception, that indeed is no perception. Therefore, the Tathagata teaches true perception." And again in the same chapter, "This perception of a being, Subhuti, that is just a non-perception. That is just a non-perception. Those all beings of whom the Tathagata has spoken, they are indeed no beings. And why? Because the Tathagata speaks in accordance with reality." Dr. Edward Conze, The Diamond Sutra. In accordance with reality means in our vocabulary, since the term reality is so variously understood, in accordance with whole mind. It might not be too much to say that this, together with its counterpart, the inexistence of any kind of self, is the leitmotif of this sutra, capital in Gnostic Buddhism, and constitutes perhaps its essential message. Subsequently, indeed, a considerably greater number of other dharmas are treated according to the same formula. One of the most direct of which is beings, Subhuti. The Tathagata has taught that they are all no beings. Therefore has he spoken of all beings. Chapter 21. It might be thought that what is meant is I am and I am not, and only in that sense I am. But the words of the Buddha are very definite and are reiterated ad nauseum in the Hindu manner. He taught that things and concepts, dharmas, are. Then he taught that things and concepts, dharmas, are not. And that is why things and concepts, dharmas, are. But Vedanta Advaita teaches I am, and the Buddhist doctrine of the void teaches I am not. The Buddha makes it clear again and again that it is on account of this latter teaching that in a sense I can be. It therefore seems apparent that there are 3 stages on this path. The pilgrim learns to understand that he is, after having understood that as an I concept he is not. Then, and only then, he comes to know that nevertheless he is not. For nothing is, not even he. And finally, he realizes that in consequence of that, and in a sense inconceivable before, he is. Hence the formula, I am not, therefore I am. The essential doctrine of the Diamond Sutra is that no sort or kind of self is to be considered as existing. Having disposed of the I concept, the Buddha proceeds to dispose of the elements that serve as a basis for it, i.e. the 5 skandhas, and finally of all dharmas from the supreme doctrine of enlightenment, via all perceptions and the 4 holy truths, the Heart Sutra here, down to his own physical body. In short, as Hui Neng realized so early in life, nothing at all exists, which is the void. But the Buddha always adds that therefore everything exists in some manner. The translations are unsatisfactory here, for some say are said to exist or are called such and such, whereas others are less evasive. One may suspect that none quite gives the sense.